1026 BBY, the Outer Rim world of Apatros, a planet steeped in the bitter toil of cortosis mining, a precious metal that was used as armor in high demand as the galaxy was in the new Sith Wars. A baby boy was born under the shadow of death of his mother, Dessel, who was left to be raised by a bitter and resentful father, Hurst. The harshness of life in the mining pits bred anger in the young boy, and the constant physical and emotional abuse forged a hatred that would become Dessel's shield. When he became old enough, Dessel would begin working in the mines with his father. One evening, as his father returned home from gambling in a drunken stupor, he began berating Dessel, which was a customary occurrence, blaming Dessel for all of their problems, calling him the bane of his existence. Dessel was fed up with this routine, so he finally spoke up, calling out Hurst for his gambling and drinking addiction, which kept them in debt. Hurst's harsh words turned into physical violence, a beating like Dessel had never endured before. Later that night, as Dessel lay in bed, unable to sleep, aching from the pain of his wounds, his rage enveloped him. Dessel thought darkly of his father's demise, imagining a hand wrapped around Hurst's heart, tightening harder and harder until it was destroyed. Hurst was found dead. His heart had failed in the night. This act marked the true beginning of his journey, Dessel's beginning of liberation. 5 years had passed, and Dessel spent day after day working in the mines, still being trapped in the system, being charged for housing and food, creating a cycle of indentured servitude. One day, after Dessel spent hours in the mines, an old friend of Hurst, Gerd, picked a fight with Dessel. Gerd attacked, and the fight looked promising after Dessel's back spasmed from working all day, until the dark side filled Dessel with vigor and the foresight for Gerd's next attack. Gerd attempted to gouge Dess's eye with his thumb. Dess quickly moved his face and bit down and severed his thumb and spit it out, ending the fight swiftly. Even though it was not Dessel's fault, he was put on suspension with no pay. With no credits coming in and his accruing debt, Dessel decided to take his chances by gambling in a game of sabacc. While playing, Dessel intimidated and manipulated the fellow gamblers, unknowingly using the Force. A few Republic officers decided to enter the game, and not long after, tensions became high as Bane had won a large sum of money, and the officer accused Bane of cheating. Before a fight could break out, the bar owner Gorshik shot his blaster into the air as a warning that the game was over and the bar was now closed. Gorshik insisted that Dessel stay until the officers left and the place was cleared out. Finally, as Dessel walked home, he was attacked by the officer in a drunken confrontation. In self-defense, Dessel killed the Republic officer, knowing that his fate on Apatros was now sealed. With help from Gorshik, Dessel fled to join the Sith army. As time passed, Bane quickly rose to the rank of sergeant in the Gloom Walkers, an elite unit that became renowned for its ruthlessness and efficiency. His commanding officer Ulabor led the Gloom Walkers on a mission to ambush the Republic forces, but Dessel quickly saw that the plan was flawed. Sending the platoon in was their certain doom. When Ulabor refused to listen to reason, Dessel took command of the situation, incapacitating his superior officer and leading the squad to victory. Although this insubordination could have led to his death, His actions caught the attention of Lord Copex, a Sith Lord who recognized Dessel's potential as a Force-sensitive individual. Brought before Copex, Dessel was, to his surprise, praised for his bravery and given an ultimatum: to rejoin the Gloom Walkers or journey to the Sith world of Korriban to learn the ways of the Sith. Dessel chose the latter. Upon his arrival on Korriban, Dessel cast aside his birth name, adopting the name Bane. Bane was inducted to the Sith Academy. The Academy was a place of harsh discipline where the weak were cold and only the strong survived. Under the watchful eyes of Sith Lord Cordis, the students were tested not only in combat but in their mastery of the dark side of the Force. Upon arrival, Bane was embarrassed with defeat after defeat in lightsaber dueling, but he finally improved. Bane accelerated quickly, becoming more skilled than some who had trained since childhood, and challenged a very skillful student. Bane proved himself and defeated his opponent, but made a point to embrace the dark side and end his life. Although the Academy did not approve of such acts, it caught the attention of Cordis, who allowed Sith Lord Kasim to mentor Bane. It wasn't just the attention of the Academy's masters Bane had received. He also drew a deadly rivalry from a Zabrak student, Sirak, who was potentially the most skilled student with a lightsaber. Bane's victory brought up the realization that he had caused his father's demise years before by embracing the dark side that one disturbing night. This revelation struck fear into Bane, fear of the mighty power of the dark side, causing him to lose his connection to the Force. Bane was flailing, and his connection dwindled as he made the mistake of challenging Sirak to a battle. He was beaten and battered within an inch of his life, but unlike Bane, Sirak spared his life, if not for mercy, so that Bane would have to live with the shame. After weeks of Bacta treatment, Bane was physically healed, but his connection to the Force was still severed. Now, all the Sith Lords shunned him, as ordered by Lord Cordis. Bane delved deeper into the Sith archives to learn the old ways of the Sith, to try to regain his connection. A fallen Jedi, Githany, was a witness to Bane's latest defeat, and she used this opportunity to her advantage. She knew that Sirak was too strong for her to defeat, so she decided to help Bane to rise up once more to challenge the Zabrak when he was ready. Since the teachers would no longer teach Bane, he and Githany would train in secret, and she would share with him what she had learned. Bane knew that she was holding back some of the lessons to not allow Bane to outgrow her in case she needed to defeat him. This caused Bane to reach out once more to Kasim, and he pled with the lightsaber master to train him. Kasim was finally convinced, and so Bane was training at night on the Academy's roof with Kasim. Bane hardly slept. He just meditated for 2 hours a night before getting back to studying or secretly training with Githany to reconnect to the Force, or Kasim to work on his swordsmanship. In Bane's studies, he became conflicted with the Brotherhood of Darkness and the old ways of the Sith. Lord Khan was the leader of the Brotherhood of Darkness, and he banded the Sith together as equals so they could stop fighting amongst themselves and focus the fight on the real enemies, the Jedi. After training tirelessly and starting to regain his connection to the Force, Bane once again challenged Sirak. Only this time, Bane not only defeated his opponent, but he humiliated him, sending Sirak to the Bacta tank, sparing his life as he had done for Bane. After Bane's victory, Kasim gifted him his old master's curved-hilted lightsaber. Bane was then summoned by Lord Cordis once more, where he told Bane he knew his secret training with Githany and Kasim, and they must end, to which Bane agreed. Cordis took it a step further and forbade Bane from having communication with Githany, as well as his studying of the archives. Bane pushed back at that demand, and despite Cordis's wishes, he journeyed into the Valley of the Dark Lords in search of wisdom, or a sign that the old Sith ways were still relevant. Bane searched for 2 weeks, and returned to the Academy exhausted and nearly starved to death. While he was gone, Lord Khan, the leader of the Brotherhood, sent word that he needed the new Sith to be ready to join on Ruusan and fight the Jedi's Army of Light, so all of the students were promoted to Dark Lords. Before leaving, Sirak had made a plan with Githany to take down Bane, and in the archives, Bane was ambushed by Sirak and 2 of his allies. It was then that Githany ignited her saber whip and stood by Bane, having double-crossed Sirak. After a momentary fight, Bane disarmed Sirak, leaving no room for mercy, and beheaded him, leaving all his previous fears and doubts of the dark side in the Sith library with his fallen enemies. Bane denounced Cordis and the Brotherhood of Darkness, and took the forbidden title of Darth as a sign that he was strong enough to hold the name fearlessly. He then set off to the planet of Lehon, hoping to strengthen his connection to the dark side. Upon his arrival, Bane was able to tame a wild Rancor and ride him in search of the Temple of the Ancients. When he arrived, it seemed empty, but he felt a faint touch of the dark side, so he continued to search until, through the Force, he was guided to the holocron of Darth Revan. Bane studied the holocron for weeks, learning more from it about the ways of the dark side than any of the Brotherhood of Darkness even knew. Bane learned the rule of 2, 1 master of the Sith and 1 apprentice. This solidified his belief that the Sith needed to be destroyed if the Jedi were to ever find their doom. Githany, currently on Ruusan, had a vision of Bane, which she shared with Lord Khan, who ordered Kasim to travel to Lehon to find Bane and end him. When Kasim arrived, he found Bane at the temple. They began to duel, Bane's violet hue striking and defending the crimson double blades of Kasim's weapon. Kasim felt under pressure as Bane moved in strong and fast, so Kasim split his staff in 2, wielding 2 single lightsabers. Kasim was faster and a better fighter than Bane had ever been led on to believe. Now enraged, Bane sent a blast of dark side energy, but Kasim deflected. Bane's intent was accomplished as the temple collapsed on Kasim, ending his life. Bane then sent a message to Khan, telling him what he had learned from Revan's holocron, a dark Sith spell called the Thought Bomb. Khan was in desperate need of something to win the battle, so he accepted it. Githany knew Bane would never truly yield to the Brotherhood, so she was sent off with Khan's blessing to poison Bane. Githany arrived to meet Bane on the planet of Ambria and used 2 types of poisons, one to overshadow the other. With a kiss from Githany, Bane was poisoned, but before he realized the severity of the poison, Githany was gone. Bane collapsed. A father and his son were scavenging the fields from items left behind from the Sith and Jedi battles. When the youngest boy spotted Bane's lightsaber, Bane took this opportunity to ignite his lightsaber, striking down the boy, then used the suffering of the father to gain strength. Bane was able to hold off the poison as he found a healer named Caleb. Caleb refused to help Bane, knowing he was a Dark Lord of the Sith, but Bane sensed Caleb's daughter, hidden underneath his hut and threatened to torture her if the healer did not help him. Caleb finally relented, and Bane was fully healed and headed to Ruusan. To the surprise of the Sith on Ruusan, Bane arrived, mocking them and calling them cowards for not using the full power of the Sith to destroy the Jedi. Bane shared a method he discovered, a ritual he called a Force Wave, and they all went to the top of a mountain above where the Jedi hid, and the ritual began, with Bane at the center, drawing the dark side from the other Sith, being filled with power until he struck the forest, lighting it ablaze. But before the ritual could be completed, Khan put a stop to it, feeling his own power being extracted. Bane was furious at the interruption, but Githany made light of the situation, having admiration for Khan and the Brotherhood of Darkness. It was then that Bane finally lost hope for Githany and knew that he was on his own. Bane chose not to follow the group, but rather head back to camp to continue plotting the demise of the Brotherhood, where he found Lord Cordis. Cordis told Bane he could see Bane wanted to overthrow Khan. Bane laughed and proceeded to destroy Cordis, force choking him to death. Bane then sent orders to the Sith fleet telling them to engage the Jedi, which allowed for some Jedi ships to land and reinforced the Army of Light, which made the Sith flee back to camp. Khan returned to find Bane, and he revealed what he had done. Khan, wanting to get rid of Bane, used a mind trick and told Bane to stay back at camp, and he would bring all of the Sith to a cave to lead the Jedi there, then ignite the thought bomb. Though Khan was mistaken, for the mind trick didn't work, as Bane's mind was like a fortress of darkness, too strong to be penetrated. Bane's plan was set in place, and it was time for the Sith to fall. Khan was under the influence that the thought bomb would only affect the Jedi, so when he detonated it, he and the rest of the known Sith were obliterated, leaving the Jedi to believe that the Sith Order was finally at its end. Bane was now in search of an apprentice to fulfill the rule of two. Upon exploring the planet, Bane discovered a Force-sensitive girl who was brought to Ruusan by the Jedi, but became lost during a battle, leaving her to survive with the help of a bouncer named La. Although, moments before Bane found her, two Jedi mistook the bouncer for an enemy and struck it down. Zannah, in a rage, killed the Jedi, and when Bane finally arrived, he was impressed and invited her to be his apprentice. Bane took Zannah back to the Sith camp, where he found an ancient scroll talking of Freedon Nod, and where he was buried on the moon of Duxon. He also discovered financial accounts of Cordis, leaving behind a great sum of wealth. Bane then wanted to see the cave where the thought bomb had been set off. While in the cave, Zannah's cousin approached her. Having not been Force-sensitive himself, he survived the thought bomb. Zannah quickly remembered that she was a Sith now, and her cousin challenged Bane after learning Zannah's fall to the dark side. Zannah acted, using the Force to explode his hand off, in hopes it would be enough to save the boy from Bane. It was now time for Zannah's first true test. As Bane traveled to Duxon, he tasked Zannah to meet him on the planet of Onderon in 2 weeks' time, using whatever means necessary. While Bane made his way to Duxon, the ghost of Cordis appeared, taunting Bane relentlessly for several days. Finally, as Bane entered the atmosphere of Duxon, he uncontrollably unleashed a surge of darkside energy, destroying his ship and crash landing onto the moon's surface. Cordis continued to taunt Bane, laughing at him, telling him he was doomed to die on the moon. Bane made his way to the tomb of Freedon Nod and began being guided by the ghost of Khan, who was surprisingly helpful in retrieving the holocron of Freedon Nod. As Bane held the holocron, several beetle-type creatures began attacking him. One burrowed on his chest and another on his shoulder, causing a great agonizing pain. After escaping, Bane studied the holocron, to which he learned the creatures were orblisks, parasitic creatures strong enough to withstand a lightsaber blade. But they constantly fed on Bane, giving him incredible healing abilities, but began to cover the entirety of his form, increasing Bane's rage and connection to the dark side with the constant pain they provided. After days of studying, Bane tamed a Drexel, a flying war beast, and he was able to use the creature to fly to Onderon, as it was so close in the atmosphere. The Force led Bane right to Zannah, where she was being attacked by some beast riders. Bane slaughtered them all, and prepared to truly take on Zannah as his new Sith apprentice. For the next decade, Bane and Zannah kept their camp on Ambria, using Cortus's funds to buy and trade information for political gain in the Galactic Senate. Bane had plotted a scheme to keep the Republic in a constant fight with small rebellion factions that Zannah would create, allowing them to cause enough of a disruption to be bothersome, but not enough for them to actually gain power to overthrow the Republic. During one mission on the planet of Sereno, things went terribly wrong for Zannah. She arrived back at camp with a nobleman, Heton, and several assassins. Bane quickly killed them, and in a blinding rage, almost killed Zannah, but she was able to reveal it was all part of her plan to get information from Heton of the planet of Tython and the Dark Lord Darzu, a Sith Lord whose holocron would instruct on how to assemble a Force-imbued artifact that thus far Bane was unable to create. Bane went off to Tython, but sent Zannah on a mission to the Jedi Temple to search the archives for a possible removal of the Orblisk, who Bane believed might be draining his body too much to have enough power to create a holocron. On Tython, Bane fought his way through Darzu's fortress, tirelessly fighting Techno Beasts of the Sith Lord's own creation. After Bane finally had the holocron, he was able to learn how to successfully create his own. Before Bane could attempt it, Zannah had traveled to Tython with her cousin, who she ran into at the Jedi Temple as he revealed the Sith's survival to the Jedi and was preparing to tell the Council. A few Jedi had tracked Zannah down. The Sith were outnumbered, but Bane's fighting style was quick and vicious, and with his orbless armor, he was unstoppable. Zannah handled herself valiantly, slaughtering 2 Jedi. Bane embraced his pain and allowed the darkness to flow through him, cutting down another 2 of the Jedi. After one was left who was in a battle meditation state, Bane charged up his anger, ready to use a powerful surge of Force lightning, and the Jedi put up a protective bubble, deflecting the powerful current back into Bane, killing the Orblisks. And as they died, they released a poison into Bane, incapacitating him. Zannah killed the last surviving Jedi and took Bane to his ship, remembering the healer he had told her about from years before. On Ambria, Zannah found Caleb. Having sent his daughter away, he was braver in his refusal to heal Bane. Zannah's cousin, still with her, tried to convince Caleb that Zannah was a good person, so Caleb struck up a deal. He would heal Bane after they called the Jedi to turn themselves in, and so it was done. Bane awoke days later, cured, and for the first time in a decade, free of his parasitic armor. Zannah revealed what she had done. Bane, although alive, was still not at his full strength, and he told Zannah to just take his life, as that would be better than being imprisoned by the Jedi. Zannah had another plan in mind. She killed Caleb and used her dark side sorcery to drive her cousin mad. When the Jedi finally did arrive, her cousin attacked the Jedi and were struck down. All the while, Zannah and Bane hid under the floorboards of Caleb's hut, shielding themselves with the Force. Another decade would pass, and Zannah and Bane relocated to Sirak 4, upgrading their home to a mansion, living now as brother and sister. Bane had finally completed his holocron, which held all of his wisdom of the dark side of the Force. Bane began to grow old. His hand would tremor on occasion, and he felt his strength was declining. He believed that Zannah had lost her desire to take the reins as the Dark Lord of the Sith. Bane believed that the Apprentice should challenge the Master at the height of their power, otherwise it would weaken the Order. Bane decided that if Zannah was too weak to overtake him, then he would have to find other ways of living beyond his deteriorating body. He had come upon a Sith Lord, Darth Zannah, who was able to live for thousands of years using the dark side of the Force. He learned that Darth Zannah had a fortress on the world of Prakith. Bane hardly ever left Sirak 4, so he sent Zannah to the planet of Done to investigate a murder, so he could sneak away and learn the dark side magic. After Zannah left, Bane traveled to Prakith, and easily enough found the fortress and killed the cultist of Darth Zannah, retrieving the holocron. Though on his trip back, Bane discovered a gatekeeper who refused to teach anything to Bane. Having no patience, he plugged his conscience into the holocron, learning all there was to know, including the power of essence transfer. As Bane returned to his home, he felt something was off, but it was too late. A Force-sensitive Itachi and several assassins attacked Bane, and with a neurotoxin were able to subdue him and take him to Done as a prisoner. The daughter of Caleb, who was now a widowed princess, learned of her father's death and tracked Bane down, insisting that he must have come back and killed her father. Bane was tortured and continuously administered with the neurotoxin to keep him too weak and unfocused to escape. Although the princess Serra waited for Bane to begin begging for forgiveness, it never came. Rather taunts, as he told her it was not he who killed her father. Bane eventually was set free by the princess's guard, who had known Bane from their time together in the Gloom Walkers during the Sith Wars. Giving Bane the antidote to the neurotoxin, he was eventually able to gain his strength and escape from the dungeon where he was held. Bane sensed his apprentice Zannah, who had tracked him down, looking to finally face off with him, learning that he was attempting to live on with essence transfer. Bane arrived to the hangar and was encountered with Zannah. Realizing he didn't have his lightsaber, she attempted to attack. Bane evaded using the Force, but he knew it wouldn't last. When suddenly, an alarm began blaring, and a self-destruct system was engaged. A wall of rocks and rubble collapsed between the two, leaving Zannah to her ship. Bane was met by the Itachi, who captured him, and she bowed, holding out his lightsaber as an offering. The woman revealed that she had a power of foresight, and she wished to be Bane's apprentice. Bane agreed, and she became Darth Cognus. Bane reached out to Zannah, requesting that their final face-off would be where it all began 20 years before, on Ambria. After they both arrived, they faced, in the calm before the storm, the low hum of their lightsabers, as the tension began to rise on this dark, cold night. And it began. Bane taking a lesson from Kasim so many years before, moving faster and striking harder than Zannah had ever trained for. Bane's pure brute strength was no match for Zannah. She had to tap into the Force and use her dark sorcery, creating dark tendrils appearing, lashing out like acidic dark forces, burning anything it touched. But Bane fought on. Zannah conjured up a spell which momentarily dropped Bane to his knees, with fear of his father and all the abuse, regressing the Dark Lord into a young boy once again. Bane quickly regained his confidence, remembering he defeated those fears when he killed his father so many years ago. The battle continued on, as Bane tried to keep Zannah too busy to unleash the tendrils faster, but one finally wrapped around his arm, disintegrating it in an instant, and just as fast, Bane began his essence transfer into his host, Zannah. A true battle of wills ensued as Bane's body disappeared, but now Zannah was able to hear him in her head. The torment lasted what felt like an eternity for Zannah, but when she rose, Darth Cognus was there and bowed, questioning, "Bane?" And the new Sith Master replied, "I am Darth Zannah, Lord of the Sith." Although Bane was gone, and it seemed to be the end of his story, Zannah looked down at her hand as it began to tremor like her old masters once did. This is not just a tragedy of a Sith Lord. This was the beginning of the rule of two, the start of the legacy that would one day overthrow the Republic and destroy the Jedi.